My name is Detective Pierce. I've walked into enough crime scenes to know fear, grief, and the strange weight of secrets, but nothing prepared me for what happened at 45 Granger Street. The call came in at 3:17 in the morning. Officer Davis, a green kid with wide eyes and shaky hands, was on the line. "Detective, you need to come to 3B. The tenant's gone. But the room, it's not right. You have to see it." I didn't ask questions. I grabbed my coat, my flashlight, and went. The street was dark, the buildings leaning like they were hiding something. The air smelled of damp brick and mildew, the kind of smell that lingers in your lungs and won't leave. I met Davis in the lobby. His face was pale. "Third floor," he said. It's worse than you think." I didn't reply. I've learned that sometimes nothing is the right answer. The hallway to 3B was narrow and smelled of rot. Yellow tape fluttered in the draft, officers murmured, but I pushed past them. I needed to see it alone. When I stepped inside, the apartment looked normal at first. Peeling wallpaper, a flickering bulb, an empty chair. Then I saw the walls. They were covered in scratches. Hundreds, maybe thousands, jagged and frenzied, twisting across the plaster. Some formed shapes, some loops, some lines that reminded me of letters. And among them, I saw it. "Help me." And beneath it, "IT remembers." I felt the air change. The room was heavy, thick, almost aware. My hand hovered over the wall. The scratches were fresh, the plaster dust soft beneath my fingers. "Where's the tenant?" I asked Davis. "Missing. Name's Helen Ward," he said. "Neighbors heard her screaming, then nothing. The apartment was empty when we got here." I circled the room. Every scratch seemed alive, pulsing faintly under the dim light. Then I noticed something else, a new set of scratches forming while I watched. Words that hadn't been there a second ago. "Detective." Another line appeared beneath it, "You're next." My heart slammed against my ribs. I backed toward the hallway, trying to make sense of it. Davis was staring at me, unsure if he should move or speak. "We need to call backup," I said, but I didn't sound convinced. Something about the room made me feel trapped even though the door was open. Then I saw a trail of scratches leading out into the hallway. Fresh, chaotic, jagged lines running along the walls. The deeper I looked, the more I realized they weren't random, they were a path. And at the end, near a rusted steel door at the far end of the hall, words had been carved freshly, "Follow me." My instincts screamed to retreat, but curiosity, trained over decades, pushed me forward. Step by step I approached the door. The air grew colder, the shadows thicker. A soft scraping echoed from beneath, slow and deliberate. Something moved down there, something alive in the dark. I reached for the handle. It was warm, almost pulsing under my fingers, and then I heard it. A whisper. Soft. Drawn out. Not quite human. "Help!" I froze. The hairs on my neck stood on end. I didn't know what I expected, but this wasn't it. I was alone, or so I thought. The whisper grew, overlapping, multiplying, until it became a chorus of words I couldn't fully understand. The walls themselves seemed to lean closer, pressing in, as if the building wanted me to hear every syllable. I took a step back, my flashlight shaking in my grip. Another line appeared on the wall beside the door, "Go down or she dies too." The message was clear. Helen Ward wasn't the first. She wouldn't be the last. And now, I was part of it. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to move. My boots echoed in the hallway as I placed a tentative foot on the first stair of the metal staircase that led into the basement. The air grew colder, heavier. The shadows twisted in ways that made no sense. And from below, a sound rose, slow, dragging, deliberate. Something was moving. Something was waiting. I gripped my flashlight tighter, swallowed the fear knotting my stomach, and took the next step. The room was remembering. And now, it was remembering me. The staircase groaned beneath my weight, each step echoing like a warning. The air grew colder with every inch I descended, thick with the smell of damp stone and rust, the metallic tang of something old, forgotten, and wrong. My flashlight beam jittered across the walls, revealing more tally marks carved into the concrete, hundreds of them stretching downward into darkness. Each one seemed to throb under the light, like the memory of someone trapped. I reached the bottom and hesitated. The hallway beyond was narrow, uneven, sloping slightly, and the shadows pooled in every corner. The scratching noise I had heard from above was gone, but now there was a low, scraping rhythm coming from somewhere deeper, as if the walls themselves were moving. My hand tightened around the flashlight. My pulse pounded. The first door appeared on my left. The metal was dented, rusted, and the lock broken, as if someone inside had forced their way out. Fresh scratches lined the frame, jagged and precise. I leaned closer, reading the words carved hastily. She was here. My stomach tightened. Someone else had been here. Someone had survived. Or hadn't. I swallowed hard, forcing my legs to move. Step by step, I approached the next bend in the hall, where the glow of my flashlight barely reached the far wall. That's when I heard it, a whisper, soft at first, threading through the cold, heavy air. Not a voice I recognized. Low, strained, drawn out. Help! I froze. The whisper repeated, growing in volume, overlapping itself until it became a chorus of murmurs that didn't make sense. I felt the hairs on my arms stand on end. The walls seemed to pulse subtly, like the building itself was breathing. My hand slid along the railing, feeling the cold metal, but the sensation under my fingers shifted, briefly warm, then icy, as if the staircase itself had a heartbeat. I moved forward, the tally marks guiding me. The lines curved and twisted, forming patterns that almost looked like letters but never fully resolved. At the end of the hallway, a steel door loomed, slightly ajar. Pale light seeped from the crack at the bottom, flickering across the concrete floor. The air that leaked from beneath smelled of earth, mildew, and something older, fouler, like decay rooted into the foundation itself. I reached for the door and hesitated. The whisper stopped abruptly, leaving a suffocating silence. Then a single sound rose from the dark beyond, a slow, dragging breath. Not human. Not fully. I swallowed hard. Every instinct told me to retreat, but the words carved on the wall earlier replayed in my mind, "Go down or she dies too." I pushed the door open. The hinges shrieked, the light spilling and revealed a room smaller than expected, with concrete walls damp and cracked. A single folding chair sat in the center, and in it, a small figure. She was trembling, hair matted, white dress stained with dirt. I called her name softly. She didn't respond at first. Then, slowly, her head lifted. Her eyes were wrong, gray, unfocused, lifeless in a way that made my stomach twist. Her lips moved, whispering words too faint to hear. And then, with sudden clarity, she looked straight at me and said, "It's not done remembering." I stepped closer, flashlight shaking in my hand. The room pulsed around us. Dust swirled, tallies on the walls seemed to shift subtly, as if rearranging themselves to follow my gaze. She reached for me. Her hand was ice cold, gripping my wrist with strength I didn't expect. Behind me, the door slammed shut with a deafening clang, plunging us into near darkness. The whispers returned, louder, multiplied. Not one voice now, but many, layered and overlapping, each speaking words that clawed at the edges of my sanity. The room wasn't just a place. It was alive. It remembered everything. Every scream, every fear, every moment anyone had ever spent here. And now, it was aware of me. I forced myself to breathe, gripping the girl's arm. I had no plan, no idea what I would do next. All I knew was that the room was waiting, and it had chosen me as part of its memory. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, wrapping around me, crawling along my spine. The girl's hand gripped mine like a vice. I forced myself to look around the room, flashlight trembling. The walls, once solid, now seemed to pulse subtly, like the concrete was alive, breathing, remembering. The tally marks shifted under my gaze, forming shapes that weren't there a moment ago. I realized with a cold certainty that the room was not merely recording the past, it was reacting to me. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer with words, only with a slow shake of her head, eyes wide and unblinking. Then she pointed toward the far corner, where shadows pooled unnaturally thick. I followed her gaze. There, in the dim light, something moved. Not fully formed, more a distortion of shadow than flesh. It flickered, stretching and retracting, always just at the edge of my vision. I swallowed. "It remembers everything, doesn't it?" The words felt absurd, yet somehow true. Every mark on the wall, every tally, every whisper, it wasn't random. This place was conscious. It had stored every fear, every panic, every death. And now it was cataloging me. The girl's hand tightened. She tugged me forward. Hesitant, I stepped deeper into the room. The air was heavy, each breath tasting metallic. The whispers layered over each other, forming phrases I could almost understand. "Don't leave. Don't look. It sees." My skin prickled. The shadows deepened. The floor seemed to stretch unnaturally beneath my feet. I reached the far corner. The shadows shifted closer. The walls around it rippled as if liquid. My flashlight caught fleeting glimpses of faces, hundreds of them pressed into the plaster, eyes wide, mouths open in silent screams. The room had remembered them. The room had trapped them. And now, it was learning about me. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the chair. The girl whispered again, almost inaudibly. "It shows what it remembers, what it wants you to see." My eyes followed her finger. In the far corner, a section of the wall seemed to warp, bending slightly inward, like a thin membrane separating this reality from something else. My heart pounded. The whispering intensified, layering voices from the past, screaming, crying, begging. The room was alive with memory, each one clawing at me. And then I saw it, a shape forming out of the wall. Not fully human, but a twisted approximation. Eyes that glimmered in the dim light, wide and hungry. It reached toward me, fingers stretching, elongating unnaturally. I stumbled back against the chair, flashlight swinging wildly. The girl shrieked, a sound that cut through the layer of whispers like a knife. The figure paused, as if acknowledging her scream, and then the air shifted violently. The floor beneath me trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. My ears rang. It was aware of my fear, feeding on it, shaping itself around it. I forced myself to take a step forward. "I don't know what you are, or what this place is," I said. My voice shook. "But I will not let it take her. Not tonight." The whispers faltered for a fraction of a second. The figure hesitated. The tally marks on the walls twitched as if reacting to my resolve. Then the room shifted again. The walls warped. The ceiling groaned. Shadows stretched toward me, clawing through the thin light. I gritted my teeth, gripping the girl's hand tightly. Every instinct screamed to run, but I couldn't. Not while she was here, tethered to this place of memories and horror. I realized then that the room didn't just remember, it tested. It challenged. It fed on fear, but it also revealed. It had chosen me, or perhaps I had chosen it by stepping inside. Either way, I was part of its story now. And somewhere in the deep darkness beyond the warped walls, I sensed more of them, other lost voices, other trapped bodies. They had been waiting for someone to notice. Waiting for me. I took a deep breath and moved forward, knowing that each step could bring me closer to survival, or closer to being remembered forever. I forced myself to move deeper into the warped corner of the room, the girl clinging to my wrist as if her life depended on it, which it did. Every step I took, the air grew heavier, thicker, almost viscous, pressing against my chest. The whispers followed, circling, layering into something almost coherent. You see. You feel. You remember. The shadow shifted again. This time it wasn't at the far wall. It moved along the floor, creeping toward us, its edges flickering like smoke in a draft. I raised my flashlight, sweeping the beam across it. Faces appeared in the darkness, hundreds of them, pressed into the concrete like frozen screams, mouths open, eyes wide with terror. Some were recognizable as human. Others, not. Limbs bent in impossible ways, torsos twisted, necks elongated. The room had memorized them all. I swallowed hard, forcing my legs to keep moving. The girl's whispers guided me toward a section of the wall that bulged slightly outward. "It wants us to look," she said. "It shows what it remembers." Her voice trembled, but it was steady enough to keep me anchored. I reached the wall. The bulge shifted under my touch, like soft, wet clay. The tally marks along it pulsed faintly, moving as if alive. My flashlight flickered. And then the wall gave way. Not like a door opening, but like reality bending. A thin membrane parted, revealing another chamber. Dim light spilled from it, casting long, warped shadows across the floor. Inside, the room seemed alive in a way that defied logic. The walls rippled, breathing. The ceiling stretched upward, impossibly high, vanishing into darkness. And in the center, more of them, shadows, figures, people and not people, all pressed against invisible walls, some screaming silently, others moving, twisting. "They're trapped," I whispered. My mouth went dry. "All of them, trapped in here." The girl nodded, her gray eyes wide. "It remembers everything. Everyone who comes here leaves a mark. And some never leave at all." A sudden shift in the floor beneath me made me stumble. My flashlight caught movement along the walls, new scratches, forming letters, words, sentences as I watched. Fresh, deliberate, spelling out messages meant for me. "You cannot leave. You are part of it." I stepped back, hard hammering, but the floor trembled again. The shadows moved faster now, reacting to my fear. Some figures reached out, clawing at the walls, at me, at the girl. The whispers grew louder, 1,000 voices overlapping into a deafening roar. I realized then that the room didn't just remember, it learned. Every panic, every hesitation, every step I had taken became part of its memory. And it was shaping itself around me, feeding off me, testing me. "Stay close," I told the girl. "Don't let go." Her grip tightened. The shadows recoiled slightly at our movement, almost hesitant, as if aware that we knew. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, into the heart of the chamber. The floor beneath us felt solid, though I could see shapes writhing just beneath the surface. The walls pulsated, showing glimpses of people, faces pressed into plaster, eyes begging for release. And then the whisper came again, singular this time, clear and unmistakable. emanating from all directions. Remember. Or be remembered. The girl shivered. It's teaching me, showing me. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. The room wasn't a place anymore. It was a being, conscious, alive, and aware of us. And every second we remained inside, it remembered us too. I realized with a cold certainty that the only way out was to confront it. To face the memory it had chosen to reveal. To step fully into the room's story. And somewhere deeper, in the farthest shadows, I sensed Helen Ward, or at least what remained of her, watching. Waiting. Part of the memory now, part of the room forever. I took a deep breath, tightened my grip on the girl's hand, and stepped forward. The room was ready for me. I stepped forward, every nerve on fire. The air pulsed around me, thick and suffocating, filled with the whispers of countless voices, screaming, begging, warning. The walls stretched impossibly high, the ceiling vanishing into darkness. The tally marks shimmered faintly, twisting into letters that scrawled themselves faster than I could read. You are next. Remember. Or be remembered. The girl's hand trembled in mine. It's showing me everything, she whispered. Her eyes were wide, staring past me into something deeper, into the memory itself. I followed her gaze and froze. In the center of the chamber, the room seemed to pulse, like a heart beating beneath concrete. Shadows twisted around it, reaching outward, pressing faces into the walls, mouths open in silent screams. And within that pulse, I saw her, Helen Ward. Or what she had become. Her body pressed against the memory, immobile, yet alive in a way that made my stomach churn. Her eyes, wide and gray, flicked toward me, recognition dawning, or maybe accusation. It wasn't Helen anymore. She was part of the room. The whispers rose into a roar. The air thickened, pressing against my chest. Shapes reached from the walls, twisting, bending, clawing. Faces I couldn't recognize stared out, eyes hollow, mouths opening and closing as if begging for release. I realized with a cold certainty, the room remembered everyone who had entered. And it didn't forget. I forced myself to speak. What are you? My voice cracked. A low, guttural vibration filled the chamber. The floor trembled. The room pulsed again. And then the voices, singular now, spoke clearly, as if from one mind. I am memory. I hold what is. I take what comes. The girl's grip tightened. It wants you to see. I stepped closer to the pulse, and the room responded. The walls shifted, rippling like water, revealing memories embedded in the plaster, screams, shadows, people trapped, moments repeated over and over. The tally marks spiraled upward, forming faces, limbs, impossible positions. Every life taken here was recorded, stored, memorized. The room didn't just remember, it lived in its memory. I felt a tug at my mind, an involuntary pull. Images flashed before my eyes, people entering this place, terrified, their panic, their pain, etched into the walls, their final moments absorbed into the pulse at the center. I realized that the room wasn't just alive, it was sentient. It fed on memory, on fear, on the act of being observed. The girl whispered again, and this time I understood. It wants you to join. To become part of what it remembers. I staggered back, fear clawing at my chest, but I forced myself forward. I had come here to save her, to confront the room. I could feel the pulse growing stronger, the air vibrating with expectation. I placed my hand on the edge of the central pulse, and the room responded violently. Shadows writhed, dust exploded, whispers screamed directly into my mind. I saw the faces of every person it had taken, staring at me, pleading. Then Helen's voice, clear and human for the first time, whispered, "Run, or it will remember you too." The realization hit me like ice. There was no fighting it. There was no defeating it. The only way to survive, if survival was even possible, was to escape. But the room did not let go easily. It shifted, walls bending, shadows lunging. The tally marks formed a path toward the staircase, guiding me, or maybe taunting me. I grabbed the girl, pulled her toward the exit. The shadows lunged, the whispers screamed, voices overlaying one another into a deafening cacophony. I ran, my boots echoing against concrete, flashlights swinging wildly, the room bending, twisting, trying to hold us back. We burst through the steel door and into the hallway. The normal city smells greeted us: dust, mildew, faint exhaust, but the weight of the memory pressed behind us, still alive. The hallway seemed calm now, the scratches on the walls faded into ordinary wear, as if the room had exhaled, letting us leave, for now. Outside, Davis ran toward us, pale and trembling. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. I held the girl tightly. She was alive, breathing, but hollowed, her eyes distant, touched by what she had seen. I looked back at the building. The lights flickered, shadows pooling in the windows. I knew it was watching, remembering. And I knew one thing with terrifying clarity: it would not stop. It never stopped. Every person who entered would leave a mark. Every scream would be recorded. Every fear stored. And one day, it would remember me, too. I led the girl away, but the memory of that room, the pulse, the whispers, the tally marks, followed me. I could feel it in my bones and my thoughts. The room that remembers doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. And it is patient. I had survived tonight. But the room was still alive. Waiting. Remembering.